Thanks for standing by and welcome to the Chimeric Therapeutics Investor Webinar, discussing the company's announcement today regarding the option to license the Core NK platform from Case Western University. All participants are in a listen-only mode. There will be an initial presentation lasting approximately 20 minutes, followed by Q&A. If you have a question you'd like to submit, please feel free to type it in using the Q&A function on the Zoom app. Presenting on behalf of Chimeric Therapeutics today, we have the CEO, Jennifer Chow. I'll hand it over to Jen to get started.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time this morning to join me. I want to introduce you to the option that we have. We are incredibly excited to have been able to announce this morning. We see the Core NK platform that Matt mentioned, we've optioned from Case Western University as truly transformative for our portfolio. So let me start off by just giving you a little bit of a sense of why we believe this is so transformative for us as a company. And then I'll take you back and give you a little bit more information about the actual Core NK platform. So what the Core NK platform is going to be able to do for Chimeric is give us a platform technology that can be leveraged by Chimeric to develop multiple new therapies. In the near term, what it actually does is it gives Chimeric 5 new cell therapy assets, which triples our pipeline, actually a little bit more than triples our pipeline. We'll have 5 new clinical programs in place or planned for 2023. So certainly extending and broadening out our clinical development program. We're now not just looking at patients with solid tumors, we're looking at patients with solid tumors and blood cancers, and we're looking now across 10 different disease areas as we think about these assets and the clinical trials we'll be doing. Because the Core NK platform is actually a platform technology, one of the other great things about it is it gives us an ability to further leverage it. So we can continue to look at building new assets using this platform through partnerships or other licensing opportunities. And we believe that not only does it continue to propel us forward as the ASX leader in cell therapy, it actually really sets us up as an emerging global cell therapy company. So as we look at it now with the Core NK platform and the different assets that we're going to be able to develop in the near term off this platform, we're going to have 7 unique assets in our pipeline. And I'll take you through a little bit of how we get there. We're going to have 8 clinical trials planned by 2023, and we'll be in 10 different disease areas, both blood cancers and solid tumors. So let me step back and just give you a little bit of sense of why we actually went after and are so thrilled to have acquired the option to this asset. When we've thought about bringing assets into Chimeric, we've really tried to think about it strategically. And so what we've done is we've looked at a little bit of a framework that you see here. We've looked for assets that are novel designs. We've looked for assets that use alternative cell types, so T cells or NK cells. And then we've looked at assets that use alternative cell sources. So individualized, where the cells are coming from a patient and then being engineered and going right back to that patient, or off-the-shelf therapies where the cells potentially are coming from a healthy donor, being engineered and going to patients all over the world. What we know is that we have 2 assets, or up until today, we had 2 assets that were novel designs that utilize T cells and are individualized therapies. So that's our chlorotoxin CAR T, which we had the really exciting data on last week and the week before, and our CDH17 CAR T, which we're making great progress to get to clinic in 2022 with. So really what we had started to focus on was looking at alternative cell types like NK cells and alternative cell sources like off the shelves. So why NK cells? So I'll give you 3 kind of fast facts about why people and why we were really interested in looking at therapies now with NK cells. One is that NK cells have an incredible direct mechanism for cytotoxicity or cancer cell killing. They're actually named for that natural killing ability. It's why we call them natural killer cells. Number 2 is because they actually have also indirect mechanisms for killing cancer cells. And in that sense, they actually activate the immune system to be able to mount an additional indirect response against cancer cells. And the third reason why NK cells really are of interest to us, as well as to so many other people now for development of therapies, is they really have fail-safe mechanisms that prevent the killing of healthy cells. So that really lessens the adverse event profile or the adverse events that patients experience. So really ideal to start to look at development with cells with NK cells. The other piece of why off the shelf probably seems relatively intuitive. So when we use the patient's own cells, we have to send those cells off. We have to wait potentially a month or 2 months to get those cells back into the patient. So certainly the idea of having an off-the-shelf therapy that if a patient comes in, we can provide to them that same day or the next day gives a lot of benefit and convenience. A couple of the potentially maybe not so obvious reasons why we think about off-the-shelf therapies too are when you're using a healthy donor rather than potentially a patient that's been exposed to multiple different types of cancer therapies, we may have a healthier starting material. We also know that with off-the-shelf therapies, we're able to scale them and manufacture with reduced costs for people, thousands and thousands of people. As I mentioned, they're readily available, and we could take them off the shelf and give them to patients right away so that they can get their therapies without waiting a month or two. And potentially, when you think about this on a global scale, you really have the ability to reach more patients because you can send off-the-shelf therapies to many more places. So just a couple of reasons why we were really focused now on looking at off-the-shelf therapies using NK cells as potentially a next opportunity for us. What we know, though, is certainly there's an incredible amount of value in these NK cell platforms. And what you see here are 3 examples of collaborations or partnerships that have happened this year that are all based on an NK cell platform. So just walking you through these quickly, Artiva actually made a deal or a partnership with Merck in January of this year. And what you see is what Artiva had was an NK cell platform, so a non-engineered NK cell platform, which is currently in phase 1. And what Merck wants them to do is use that NK cell platform to give them up to 3 CAR NK products. With that, now these are assets that have not yet been designed. They are in discovery to preclinical mode, but they would be using Artiva's NK cell platform. Merck provided Artiva $30 million US up front and milestones and royalties that would go up to $1.8 billion for the 3 assets. Similarly, Shoreline, who also has an NK platform, but it's actually a preclinical platform, did 2 deals or announced 2 deals in June. One was with Beijing and the other was with Kite. And for both of those companies, what Shoreline is doing is using their NK cell platform to develop CAR NK therapies. With Beijing, you saw $45 million upfront for up to 4 different therapies and undisclosed milestones and royalties. And with Kite, what you see is undisclosed upfront, but you see milestones and royalties for 3 assets that reach up to $2.3 billion. So this just gives you a sense of the interest that people have, particularly a lot of the big pharma companies now, in NK cell platforms and how NK cell platforms can be leveraged to build other therapies for other companies. So that takes me back to the announcement of the day, which is our exclusive option on the Core NK platform. And the Core NK platform for us, it's clinically validated. And for us, what that actually means is this platform has already been through a phase 1 clinical trial at Case Western. It's an off-the-shelf platform, so all of those benefits of an off-the-shelf therapy that I was talking about, this has. It's robust and enhanced, so it's genetically modified and it is optimized for expansion. And it obviously uses NK cells. So we also know that we are going to be able to, in the near term, develop 4 new chimeric therapies for solid tumors and blood cancers using this particular platform. The platform is very synergistic with our existing 2 assets because they're both chimeric antigen receptors. So using chlortoxin, we'll be able to build a chlortoxin CAR NK, and using our CDH17 CAR, we're going to be able to build a CDH17 CAR NK. We are able to further look at leveraging the platform, just like Artiva and Shoreline did, to build additional new therapies through partnerships or licensing. We have phase 1 plans, or phase 1 clinical trials planned for 2023. And I showed you already how these are highly attractive for investment and partnering. We had attractive option terms with a planned research collaboration with Case Western that developed the therapy, and the upfront payments for the option are funded entirely from our existing cash reserves. So a little bit of background on the gentleman that actually developed the CORE-NK platform. This is Dr. David Wald. Dr. Wald is a clinician scientist at Case Western and well recognized in this field. He has an interest in the development of natural killer cells, and particularly how they can be applied to eradicate both colorectal cancer and acute myeloid leukemia, or AML. So we're thrilled to be working with Dr. Wald and really to be looking at pulling through all of the work that Dr. Wald did. So what Dr. Wald did when he was actually developing the CORE-NK platform is he took a natural killer cell from a healthy donor, and he activated and he expanded that healthy donor's natural killer cells to develop the CORE-NK platform. So essentially the IP that we have on this is not just about manufacturing, it is also about genetic engineering of those natural killer cells through an NK feeder cell line. So essentially, anybody that wants to read a little bit more about it, it was published in the Nature family of journals through the scientific publications under Dr. Wald and his team. So this is what he's done, or how he's taken a natural a natural killer cell from a healthy donor, and then he's essentially engineered it to give us these CORE-NK platforms that then we've expanded, and you can see then made them robust, so there are lots of them. What Dr. Wald did was then he took those CORE-NK platform cells into a phase 1 clinical trial. And what you see here is the patient eligibility for that clinical trial included patients that had both blood cancers and solid tumors. And it was a traditional dose escalation trial where he started patients, or the first cohort of patients, at a low dose of 10 times 10 to the 6 cells per kilogram, and worked his way up through the dose escalation to 50 times 10 to the 6 cells per kilogram. The trial is actually complete. And the primary completion of the trial, so the last patient received dosing in June of this year. There were 11 patients enrolled, and we know the patients were enrolled that had both solid tumors and blood cancers, and 9 patients were actually dosed, completing all 3 of those dose levels. We anticipate, after all of the follow-up that's required, the data will be available sometime in 2022. So from here, where do we go? We have a CORE-NK platform that Dr. Wald had developed, and he's already put in a phase 1 clinical trial. What do we do with it next? So what we're going to do is we're really going to take some of the learnings from this trial and that Dr. Wald had as he went through this over the last couple of years, and we're going to do 3 different things with the platform. The first is we're going to build a next generation CORE-NK platform based on some of Dr. Wald's insights. The second is we're going to build a stable of CAR-NK products for ourselves. And the third is we're going to explore the opportunities to further leverage this platform. So the first thing, building the next generation CORE-NK platform. Essentially what we're going to be looking at is next generation enhancements. We're looking at things like non-viral vectors and looking at things like TGF-beta inhibitors that would allow us to further overcome the tumor microenvironment. So this will be the first thing we do, is we're going to take that CORE-NK platform we have now, play with it a little bit further to develop ourselves a next generation platform. And with that next generation platform, we're actually going to move into clinical trials in blood cancers using the next generation CORE-NK platform in combination therapy. And right now we're targeting acute myeloid leukemia, or AML, B-cell malignancies like DLBCL, and multiple myeloma as 3 of the blood cancers that we would be looking to move into in the phase 1 clinical trial. So that's the first thing that we're going to do with the CORE-NK platform. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to build ourselves CAR-NKs. And certainly this is how you really sort of supercharge in some ways the CORE-NK cell, is by turning it into a CAR-NK. Essentially, that's done by taking a chimeric antigen receptor, like you see on the left, and inserting it into the CORE-NK cell, into the CORE-NK cell platform cells. And then what you see is the expression of the CAR-NK. So now the cells have all the benefits that came with the CORE-NK cell, so all of those NK cell benefits, And then we further enhance their ability to find and kill cancer cells by adding in the chimeric antigen receptors. Because of our existing pipeline, we're actually able to accelerate the development of 2 CAR-NKs. We're going to insert chlortoxin, our chlortoxin CAR, into the platform to develop a chlortoxin CAR-NK. And we're going to use our CDH17 CAR, and we're going to insert that into the CORE-NK platform cells to develop a CDH17 CAR-NK. So this really allows us, this CORE-NK platform allows us to leverage our existing assets to build more next generation assets. So really excited about being able to move these forward or accelerate the development of these assets as well. And then what that actually does is it gives us a really diversified portfolio. So you see, just by doing those 2 things, we wind up with our original CAR-Ts, so both the chlortoxin CAR-T and the CDH17 CAR-T, and then we have 5 additional therapies: the CORE-NK platform itself, the next generation platform that will be going into blood cancers as a combination therapy, and then the chlortoxin CAR-NK, CDH17 CAR-NK, and we currently have a 3rd CAR-NK planned for development with a currently undisclosed target. Past everything that we're going to build into our own pipeline, the other opportunity that excites us about the CORE-NK platform is our ability to further leverage it. So the other thing we'll be looking at is identifying further collaboration and licensing opportunities. I started by giving you a couple of examples with Artiva and Shoreline, but you see some additional examples here of development of CAR-NK products by different companies and what those partnerships look like. So we'll be exploring opportunities to further leverage the platform through this type of opportunity as well. So what does that look like in terms of milestones? It's a lot to get done, and we're so excited to be bringing this in. 4 new clinical trials by 2023. So within the next couple of weeks, towards the end of this year, what we're really going to do is align on the next generation enhancements we're going to make to that CORE-NK platform and move that into development. In 2022, we're going to really focus on building out the chlortoxin CDH17 and the 3rd undisclosed CAR-NK for development, with the plan to move into clinical trials with the next generation CORE-NK platform in 2023, as well as the 3 additional CAR-NKs. So really accelerated development of all of these new chimeric products. So to give you a sense of where that now puts us, not just in terms of the leader in cell therapy of Australia, but also in terms of more of a global portfolio, what you see here is other companies that have NK cell therapies in development. And so companies like Cellularity and Fate that have 2 and 3 NK cell products, and the US-based companies, you can see the valuations anywhere between 500 million US dollars with Fate all the way up to $5 billion. So certainly an incredible amount of opportunity that we believe this particular platform brings us in terms of growth for our company. We'll continue to develop our team so that we are able to expand alongside our now very fast or rapidly expanding portfolio. Just yesterday, we were thrilled to bring in a new member to our team, Elizabeth Trotman, who is joining us from a project leadership perspective to make sure that everything that we are doing stays on track and moves forward in a timely manner. And we were thrilled to bring her in, just like the rest of our team, with an incredible amount of cell therapy experience. She's just come off the approval of Abecma coming from BMS. So with that, I'll tie up a little bit. On the left, what you see is just some of the highlights of what we believe the CORE-NK platform in and of itself does. It's a clinically validated, because it's been through that phase 1 trial, off-the-shelf platform that can be leveraged for multiple new therapies. It has been studied in that phase 1 clinical trial, both solid tumors and blood cancers, and it gives us accelerated development of 4 new assets for the company, and then additional opportunity for further development. From how we see that as transformative for us, we're now looking at a cutting-edge cell therapy portfolio with 7 different assets using alternative cell types and cell sources. We'll have 4 clinical trials in place or completed by next year and 8 clinical trials by 2023. development across both solid tumors and blood cancers in over 10 different disease areas, and really moving us or propelling us forward further as the leader in Australian cell therapy development, but also now as an emerging global cell therapy company. So Matt, I'll stop there and invite any questions. Hopefully I have spoken fast enough to allow some time for questions, but provided enough background that people can really understand a little bit about why we are so excited with this announcement today.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, as you've mentioned, we'll move on to the Q&A. Again, as I said earlier, if there's any questions, please use the Q&A function on the Zoom app, and we'll get through as many as we can. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes, just as Jen has another meeting following this, but any that we don't get through, we'll come back to those people separately via email or phone. So please feel free to send anything through in the meantime. Jen, just the first question, I know it was covered in the announcement, but just to clarify, is Chimeric funded for the upfront fees associated with this agreement?
Sorry, Matt.
The question was just, is Chimeric funded for the upfront fees associated with this agreement?
Yes. So the upfront fees associated are coming from our existing cash reserves.
Great, thank you. The next question is, does this mean that the company will now hold off exploring new assets for the time being?
I think that we are, from our perspective, this does add some real value to our pipeline and obviously expands our programs significantly. I think at this point, any future development would be something, or any additional pipeline opportunities would perhaps be something we'd have to really look at very carefully what the opportunity is. And I think right now we're really focused on moving all of this forward and then potentially on maybe some collaborations more than on acquiring just new assets.
Great, thank you. A question that's come through is, when could we hear more about the undisclosed CAR-NK?
I would anticipate that we'll be able to share more about that probably next year.
Great. And a follow-up to that is the reason for the 2023 start date for trials due to more preclinical work?
Yes, and so I think a couple things that we obviously want to be able to do. One is we want to take the platform and make a few further enhancements to it. And then I think the other thing that we obviously need to be able to do before we move into clinical trials is actually take our chimeric antigen receptors, like chlorotoxin and the CDH17, and build the CAR-NKs and do the preclinical work on that. So that's really what we plan to be doing in 2022 that takes us to that 2023.
Thank you. The next question is, what are the key differentiators of this NK platform versus others out there?
Yeah, I think there are a number of them. So this particular NK platform was actually developed really thinking about two of the bigger challenges for NK platforms, one being expansion. And I think what Dr. Wald has been able to do is develop an NK feeder cell line that actually, by using IL-21, which is something that a lot of the initial NK feeder cell lines don't use, he's been able to show expansion of these particular cells that is, really addresses one of the challenges that we've seen with a lot of NK cells, cell lines.
The next question is, have you been approached by anyone about partnerships?
We only announced this today, so not yet. So we certainly anticipate that as we move this forward a little bit, and obviously as it becomes more common knowledge, that we will start to have discussions about partnerships and collaborations.
Thanks, Jen. The next question is, as the new assets are under development, could these new NK CAR be further combined with binders for modular control?
Yeah, I don't see that being the way that these would be developed. No, Matt, I think that these particular assets, these CAR-NKs, are really, one of the benefits of using NK cells is the safety profiles are really quite strong. So we don't see that off-tumor toxicity. So, I don't think that's something that we would really plan to do in the near term.
Great. Look, I've got no more questions in the queue for the moment. I'll just pause for 10 or 20 seconds and see if we have any final questions. Just one further question was, has there been any follow-up or feedback off the back of the SNO data last week, Jen?
Yeah, I think the SNO data last week, which was on our chlorotoxin CAR-T, so the very initial data there, which we found very encouraging and positive. I think we've seen from the scientific community positive feedback as well in the United States, where a number of people that were actually at SNO really, started to talk about how they saw this as promising data as well. So, we certainly see it as very encouraging, early, but very encouraging data, and are continuing to look forward to bringing forward announcements about continuing to move forward in that trial.
Great. Thanks very much, Jen. I'll just throw it back to you to give a final comment before we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. So first of all, thank you everybody for taking the time to learn a little bit more about this asset. I think from our perspective, we are thrilled to be bringing this platform in, because as you can see, the type of opportunity that a platform like this can bring us as an organization. We'll certainly be looking, now that we've actually been able to complete the option agreement, we'll certainly be looking to really nail down in much more detail all of our plans, and we'll look forward to sharing those with you as we're able to build them out in more detail. So thank you again for your time, and hopefully you'll come to see this as transformative as we see this for the organization.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks everyone for joining today. That concludes the Chimeric Therapeutics Investor Webinar, and we'll look forward to bringing you more updates as they come through. But thanks again.
Thank you.